So hello world and welcome to our new episode of our webcast. Today we're actually going to make an exception from our intention not to speak about Corona, since there were enough people doing that. But we are going to speak about it somewhat today at least. Norway, just as any other country, has developed a support program for companies to get financial aid from the government in these times. And to be able to handle that, you need to have a platform. You need to be able to take on applications from companies that need help, and you have to have a possibility to handle the payments in an efficient way. And this platform was not available 2 months ago. And today's guest is we're actually going to meet somebody who took on that challenge to develop that platform in a mere 3 weeks.
Yes, today's guest is Yngvar, and he's almost like a tech celebrity in Norway. He's working at DNB, the biggest bank in Norway, and he's an executive vice president at NewTechLab at that bank. And he's also a lecturer at the Singularity University Nordic, and he's been seen on TV shows and webcasts and podcasts and in newspapers and articles lately. And he's been building products and innovations and technology for decades. So please welcome Yngvar. Hello.
Hi, Yngvar.
Thanks for having me. Hi.
All right. So, NewTechLab, could you give us what is that? What is the purpose?
Yeah. So, NewTechLab is what we consider the SWAT team of new technology, and SWAT team is special weapons and tactics. Basically, you carry your own gear and you do black ops. You move into uncharted territories, so potentially dangerous territories. You move quickly in and quickly out, and then you report back to kind of the mothership. So that's the way we work with new technologies. We do believe that the future is already here. It's just very unevenly distributed. So that's how we move into new territories, figure out where is it safe to go and where is it not, and kind of write out that map so that the bank as a whole can know where to move kind of the big super tanker ship.
Okay, cool. So what's the difference between a tech lab and an innovation lab?
Yeah, so the reason why we're named the tech lab is that we obviously the ultimate one of the ultimate goal is obviously innovation. That means creating something of that is really new and really useful in the real world that gets adopted by people. But on the way, the technology is our focus. So we always start with the tech, and we look at new technologies just as an exploration. And kind of we the things we're exploring as well, we don't know what we don't know. So it's not like following a map. We're just looking at new technologies and looking at, once we get to play with those technologies, given the new opportunity space that those technologies span out, then it's like, what is now possible that we couldn't imagine without getting knowledge about those technologies. So that's, and we typically do that along 3 dimensions. One is like real radical scenarios for the long future. Long future, I mean 8 to 10, 15, 20 years, like radical ideas. And then we start building, kind of testing out what might we do on that path and try to validate or falsify those ideas. Second dimension is how can we use new technologies or technologies of tomorrow for the problems of today, like helping the core business with making more money, being more efficient, better user experiences, and so on. And the third one is basically reality injection, basically going beyond the hype and injecting some reality. And so we have a group-wide responsibility in DNB to map out what we call a technology radar, which is both a visual tool that we have. It's also a document that we write and report to group management and to the board of directors.
Cool. So coming back to the situation we're in right now, 2 months ago this platform was not available. And the question was asked to different authorities before it actually ended up with you, like the tax authorities and so on. And they all looked into it and declined and said, no, we cannot do it. Because obviously it had to be done fast. It would not be sort of bring any value if it takes 3 to 4 months, because then we're already lost those companies. So eventually the question came to DNB and you and your team. What on earth made you say, yes, we can do it, when everybody else said no?
Well, we didn't know initially that the question kind of the request has been given to a lot of official administrations, but we looked at through our lens, like, what is it we're going to do? It's a solution that hasn't been built before. That's what we always do. We said we can use our own team, our own resources. Cool, yeah, that's okay. And we said that, okay, we have to be 100% autonomous. And that means we need to contain all risk, so that if we depend on lookup tables, national registries, and so on, we need to have access to local copies of that, so that we can operationally contain all risk. And everyone said, yeah, that's okay. So basically, check. And I remember in the first call I had, I just sketched out an initial architecture. Looks super simple, and I took a picture of it, posted on Slack to my team, and said, we've been asked to do this, see if you can understand what it says, and we'll meet in an hour if you guys are available, and see if we can do this, and we have to give an answer within 24 hours. So there was like a lot of things checked off. Some things didn't. I mean, the way we work with this is that normally the way we work is we try out many things, and very few of them becomes reality. That means we have to be really good at failing fast. We like to say that no one fails as fast as us, but in this case, there was really no option. The requirement was pretty clear. The first amount of money needs to be in the first company's bank account in 3 weeks. And so basically we just have to use our superpowers, work the way we normally do, and because we believe it can be done, we believe it can be done, and that's we're used to not knowing what we don't know. So we kind of just gave it a go, and also had to do a little bit of backward counting. If we're going to be in production in 3 weeks, that means we have to run pilot production with the whole value chain, including the banks, including testing that money actually comes into bank accounts, at least 3 bank days before, because the bank day cycle is it's slow, so you can't move too fast. And then basically working backwards, and we realized that if we're going to make this, it's not 3 weeks of building things. We have to build most of the things, most of the features, most of the capabilities in 10 days in order to be able to meet those requirements.
Wow. So do you use any specific method or principles or process to accomplish this?
Yeah. As I said, we said we needed to work the way we usually work, and that's because we're a tech lab and we're set up basically like a startup. We have the coding hands and the tech brains that we have, but we have nothing else. So we're basically bootstrapped, and we're always the same team. We have a way of working, and when we were given 24 hours to respond to the government if we were willing to take on this challenge or not, we spent those 24 hours writing code. So getting as soon as we can to have some kind of prototype, some kind of technical skeleton and architecture to see do we think this could be possible to do, to get up in that very short amount of time, to make it scale, and to be secure enough, because we knew that this is going to be the mother of all honeypots. It's like 20 billion Norwegian crowns every month. That's the budget, and you basically don't have, at the point where you, as a company, submit the application, you don't have to document the numbers you put in. So it is. I truly believe that this is the mother of all honeypots. It would be very tempting for people to try to get hold of money they shouldn't. So security as well. So that's why we started with tech, and basically we figured if we were going to do this in 10 days, we need to iterate super fast. So instead of having the daily stand-up cycle, we had stand-ups 3 times a day. So 9:30 in the morning, 3:30 in the afternoon, and 9:30 at night. So basically running 3 shifts. So people were asking, so you basically were working 24/7? No, not really, but some people were working 21/7, literally, which is crazy, of course. So, but this is once we actually managed to, like when we had 72 days again left of those 10 days that we need to become feature complete. It's like, yes, we think we actually can do that, and then it's like so much energy was released again, and kind of, yes, we can breathe and we can still keep this pace, but we're not under so much pressure. And obviously, we thought that we could work less hours after being feature complete and just doing testing. Not at all. Things changed so many times. We have, I think, we have tens of thousands of lines of code that is actually live in production, but we have equally many lines of code that is not in production anymore because we had to pivot so many times. And the last, we were supposed to go live on Friday 17th, but we couldn't because it wasn't approved by the European surveillance authorities. So we were ready to go, but it wasn't approved, so we weren't allowed to. And then late Friday night, there was an agreement between authorities in Norway and the European authorities that, okay, you can go live under these conditions. You need to add 5 more fields, and this is the rules that has to apply. So a change after we had done production testing and we're ready to turn on everything public availability, and we had to do another set of changes that Friday night.
I think this is very much about about commitment. I mean, I guess both commitment from your side and your team to take on. I mean, I was asking you when we spoke the other day, were you not afraid that you were, what is it we're doing and what if we fail? Because obviously that would be, in this situation, kind of tough. But I think it's also commitment from government, from the bank, from the authorities to actually really remove all the hurdles that you would normally have in such a situation. I mean, it's not uncommon for just, taking a couple of days to come back and say, yes, we can solve this, or okay, we can change this, or whatever. So it must have taken an immense amount of commitment from all parties to be able to succeed.
Absolutely. And I think the solution we ended up with was a lot less self-contained on risk on our side than we signed up for. And that just happened because we had so much ongoing iterative communication and interaction with both the authorities and the public administration units. So we ended up with a solution that was much less standalone than we set out to be. But that also means that it's more integrated with existing digital infrastructure and the way that companies are used to working and communicating with the public administrations. So, and if I was asked to do that task, integrate with public administration and their legacy systems, I would not have signed up for it. But that's what we ended up with, and just because we managed to focus on working software all the time, and just by talking closely to them, having them on speed dial, you're always just 5 minutes away from having a Teams meeting. You could really manage to respond to change super quick, and the same went for the government, like the Department of Finance. they would turn around super quick, and they would so understanding about that the business rules that they came up with need to be digital friendly. It needs to be able. It can't be room for interpretation.
No.
It needs to be. You need to be able to code it. Otherwise, it won't work. And we have like in Scandinavia in general, we have super modern digital infrastructure, both in the public administrations as well as in banks, and trustworthy public registries. And it is basically the building blocks that made it possible to come up with a solution from scratch and put money in the first company's account within 3 weeks from the day we were asked, do you think you can do this?
So what's your role now? Are you still involved in sort of securing, or I assume there is some bug fixing and stuff to be done still, or?
Yeah, so the initial idea was that, or what we still know is that this solution is going to be going to apply for 3 months, March, April, and May. So that means companies can apply for funds retroactively. So and there's going to be. I'm actually waiting for an update of the legislation as we speak. So we're going to implement that and go live on next Friday, which is when they can start applying for April. And we expect another release to be in mid June. So we're basically the DevOps team now, which is very different from what we normally do. But it's a temporary time-boxed solution. So we're just going to stay with it and make sure that it remains a success and remains a lifeline for those companies that needs monetary funds during the crisis.
Cool.
Great. It's a great story. So before we finish up here, initially you talked about NewTechLab and your way of looking at different technology. Can you share some of the radical ideas that you've had lately?
Well, some of them are kind of. Well, I can share one that is kind of tangible. There's the 3 biggest IT projects in the bank right now is about building the world's best mobile bank and the world's best savings experience for individuals, and the third one is to build the best mobile experience for kind of the chairperson of the company or the managing director. So it's basically about mobile. And one radical scenario that we're approaching or looking at is, what if in the future there are no phones? So how would you interact with digital intelligent surroundings when there are no, like, when you're still a carbon-based user, and when you don't have this silicon-based proxy to the intelligent surroundings, then what? Cool. So we've been experimenting and building some prototypes and pilots on how you can do that, and that's we don't know if that scenario will ever come through, but it's something worth exploring because it raises a lot of questions. Yeah.
So I think it's really interesting to hear, and obviously your world is quite different from ours. Ours being more of a traditional IT company. So if we can learn something from your methodologies and your mentality, what would it be? What would your recommendations be for a company like ours, for example, to improve?
Yeah, I think especially from this project, but in general as well, because we don't really play by the rules. And I think it was Eric Ries, lead startup guy, that told me in the workshop a few summers ago that why don't you just think what's the worst thing that could happen? Yeah. And like how wrong could it go if you just do what you hope might come through? And I also heard like business coaches and life coaches and so on. They say, well, what is it that you would do if there were no downside to it? What is that you would choose for your life? And I think that this kind of when this mental exercise of not just say that no rules apply. I think that's what we learned from this project. When no rules apply anymore, then the impossible becomes possible.
Yeah.
And that idea of just saying there are no rules, what might be possible.
Yeah. I think that's great final words. Thank you so much for joining us, Yngvar. It's been very interesting to listen to.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much for having me.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye now.
So that would be great to have him come and talk to our developers and give them some inspiration on how to think without boundaries. I guess that's
very inspiring to listen to this. First of all, yes, the crazy ideas that they are thinking of, but also this specific project, how they managed to solve that in just 3 weeks, which is like a very, very short time in terms of technology development. So it's a really cool project.
Yeah, I would like to have an internship. I would like to be a trainee at that lab. That would be interesting.
Yes.
So thank you so much for joining us today. Hello world.
Hello world.